Hello, my dear friend. The name of the parsha is Acharai Mos. That's a startling name. Acharai Mos means after the death. It refers to Aaron's two children, Nadav and Avihu, who on the 8th day of the consecration of the Mishkan brought an unauthorized sacrifice of incense of Ketores into the Mishkan, and because it was inappropriate, a fire came out from Hashem and consumed their souls. So why in the world would you name that was a super tragedy? Why would you name a parsha after such an event? The greatest tragedy is a parent losing a child. It's normal for a child to lose a parent. Children sit shiva for parents. That's the natural order. Even spouses sit shiva for each other because one or the other has to eventually be the first one to meet their demise. But parents are not, in the natural order of things, they're not supposed to sit shiva for their children. Aaron had to sit shiva, not for one child, but for two children. And these were two great people, Nadav and Avihu, it was part of the celebration of the Beis Hamikdash, of the Mishkan, and they were religiously inspired, and they couldn't contain their joy and their desire to become close to Hashem, and they perished. So that was such a painful and terrible and tragic event. So why name a parsha Acharai Mos? And it's not only why is that the name of the parsha, but the Torah uses that as the introduction for what it's discussing. The parsha doesn't, that's not the focus, that the Aaron's children died. The focus is the avoda in the Mishkan on Yom Kippur, that once a year, once a year, Aaron can't go into the Beis Hamikdash the whole year. Once a year, he has the privilege to enter the Beis Hamikdash. And the Torah describes all the korbanos that he has to bring when he enters the Beis Hamikdash. So the Torah says, after Aaron's children died, then Moshe told Aaron what he has to do when he comes to the Beis Hamikdash. Why are you connecting the two things? Why is that an introduction? The death of Aaron's children, how does that serve as an introduction to the fact that Aaron once a year comes and does the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash? Rashi already is troubled by that. So I want to suggest that there's a tremendously profound and important lesson that's relevant to every single one of us. Because life is is always the synthesis or the combination. It's not the synthesis, but life, there's always two extremes. There's moments of joy, moments of happiness, and moments of simcha, and then there's times of pain, times of hurt, times of disappointment, times of tragedy. Most people do not know how to reconcile the two. They're two different worlds, and they when they're experiencing one, they have to block the other one out of their minds. If they're experiencing simcha, they have to forget about the pain, and when they have the pain, they can't experience the simcha. There's a well-known story about Rabbi Freifeld, who was a famous religious personality, passed away, I think, about 50 years ago. He was a very smart person. Rabbi Freifeld, a tremendous mechanech. There was a murder in his neighborhood. A young man was murdered. So a mother approached him and said, Rebbe, how am I supposed to, now after the Levi? She said, I'm going to go home to my children. How can I put a smile on my face? So Rabbi Freifeld said, a Jew has to have two pockets. In one pocket, you have the moments of joy. In the other pocket, you have the sorrow and the tragedy. At the Levaya, you had, this was that we just experienced, that was the tragedy. But now take that pain and put it in one pocket and zipper it up. And then take out the smiles and the happiness in the other pocket. And that's what you have to, that's the way you have to be with your children right now. So what Rabbi Freifeld says is 100% true. You have to be able to segregate the two. But I would add to that the two should not, most people, what they do is they decompartmentalize, they segregate and separate the two. I would say that the ideal is to take the pain and transform that as a basis for the joy. As an example, people have asked me, they're sitting shiva, and right after the shiva, they have a chasana. How are they gonna dance at the chasana? How are they gonna be happy at the chasana of a child? How are they going to be in a state of joy when they just had such a terrible experience? So I've suggested to them, you know what? take the pain and or take the memory of your dear one and make that part of the simcha. It should not be the elephant in the closet. When you're walking down with the father or mother, with the chasser and the kala, when you're walking down, imagine that you're walking together with your father or mother who just passed away. Make them part of simcha, and they should be inspiring you, because after all, they're the grandparents. Even if they're not there in person, but feel their presence. And during the Sheva Brachos, when you speak, talk about what the impact that they had on your life and how that is translated into the way you raised the grandchildren or the chassan or kala. Don't segregate the two. The brilliance of Judaism is that in Yahadis there's always ways to take what appears to be negative and transform it into something good. The Barditchever Rebbe was a genius when it came to doing that. The Rebbe said, the pasuk says, "Sur me rav asei tov," go away from the bad and do good. So plain meaning is stop doing averas and do mitzvahs. But he said it means take the bad and transform. Sur me ra, go away from it being bad. Asei tov, and make it into good. The Gemara says, for example, that if a person committed averas, if he does tshuva me'ava out of love of Hashem, then there's donas nasis kizuchuyis. The averas become mitzvahs. How's that possible? How can an avera become a mitzvah? It's an avera. The person commits terrible avera. How can it be a mitzvah? But the answer is because if the avera inspires you, then the avera itself becomes a mitzvah because it's a basis of inspiration. So if a person feels motivated by the fact that he fell short, so then that becomes the mitzvah. The pasuk says, "Sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam lo," but a tzaddik falls 7 times and he gets up. So the plain meaning is, even though he falls 7 times, still he gets up. I would say not even though. It's because when he falls, that motivates him. No, this is not how I want to be, and he gets up and he rises to a higher level, and he's more inspired. So when the Torah says that after Aaron lost his children, so it was a time of great tragedy, and Aaron, no doubt, he felt tremendous pain and sorrow, but now he had to go. Now God is telling Aaron that he has to do the avodah in Beis Hamikdash. So God's saying, don't think that when you go into the Beis Hamikdash, you take the pain of your son's 2 children's death and put it away someplace and don't think about it. No, use that experience as a basis to be inspired. It was a tremendous privilege to go into the Beis Hamikdash. Once a year, he's not allowed to go during the rest. Once a year, what a privilege. So Aaron needed to be thinking about, at that moment of privilege, he needed to be thinking about, my children did not have the schus of being able to go into the Beis Hamikdash. They tried. Their motivation was good, but there was a misstep. They went in when it was not authorized. So I'm going to continue where they left off. I'm going to take their inspiration. And when I go into the Beis Hamikdash, I'm going to go in with my children, with Nadav and Amaviah. I'm going to feel their presence. They weren't zocha to go in, as I am. The privilege of going once a year. But they'll come with me, even if their neshamas will come with me. They'll be together with me in the Beis Hamikdash. So that's why the parsha is introduced with Acharai Mos, Shnei V'nei Aaron. It's after. The key is Acharai. What do you do now? After. Of course, the time of the tragedy is terrible. But Acharai, what do you do? What do you do is you have to pick up the pieces and you have to go further. You have to take the painful experience and transform that into something positive. So the Torah says, Bezos Yavo Aaron El Kodesh. With this, Aaron goes into the Beis Hamikdash. And what does Bezos mean? So the plain meaning is, Bezos means all the things that the Torah describes afterwards, all the different sacrifices. Why does it have to say Bezos? What does it need an introduction for? So I would say it means Bezos goes back on the beginning of the parsha. It's Acharai Mos. It's after the children died. Bezos Yavo Aaron El Kodesh. It's with the death of his children that he goes into the Beis Hamikdash, because he's going to go with them and he's going to use that as a basis for inspiration, and he's going to feel the tremendous privilege and the schus to be able to do the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. It's not You don't segregate experiences. You don't compartmentalize. You have to merge. You have to take the sur meirav asay tov. You have to take the bad and transform it into a positive force. We've gone through an enormously difficult year these past 6 or 7 months. It's unbelievable what has happened to the Jewish people, the tragedy, the brutality, the loss, the suffering, the pain, the crying, the tears. But Acharai Mos, what are we doing with it? The genius of Klal Yisrael is that we've been able to take all that pain and transform it into a positive force. Look at all the mitzvahs that have been done during this whole period of time, and with all the anti-Semitism and on the college campuses and around the world, and the United Nations and the International Court. Everything that's going on, people could think the sky's falling in, the world's collapsing, the world's coming to an end. It's true, it's painful, but Klal Yisrael has utilized that for Sheva Yipol V'Kam. They keep on getting up, and they keep on being stronger, and they keep on reaching a higher madrega, a higher level. Look at the achdus among Klal Yisrael. It's unbelievable. There never was such achdus, such unity. Look how devoted people are to each other. Look how much around the world there's over $1 billion was donated in order that the soldiers should have supplies that they need. There are people that are making barbecues every single day for the Chayolim. There's so many things. There's so much religious inspiration. There's so many people that have been moved to become Torah observant because of the experiences that they had. 2 weeks ago, after the missile attack with 300 missiles that Iran shot in, was shooting they attempted to shoot in Israel. There was a nice niggle. There was an open miracle. So many people were inspired by that. Instead of focusing on the tragedy and the fear and how terrible things are, but it transformed them, and that's the secret. The secret is Acharai Mos. It's after the Mos of Shnei B'nei Aharon, Bezos Yovel Aaron HaKodesh. This is how you go into the Kodesh. You take your experiences. There's no such thing as something that's purely bad. You have to transform. The Berditchever, he was able to see the good in every situation. He writes there's a sefer Kedushas Levi that the Berditchever wrote. He says, "Haklal kol davar shatzadik roa mimenu lokeach avodas Hashem." Everything that a tzaddik sees, he uses it to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Berditchever was a genius in doing that. There's a famous story about the Berditchever. He was walking and he saw a man. In the olden days, they didn't have cars; they had horses and buggies. So you had to oil the axles and the wheels. So there was a man wearing his talis and tefillin and oiling the axles. So somebody walks by, he says, "Look at this lowly person. He's chutzpah. He's engaged in such a mundane activity, and he's wearing his talis and tefillin. What's wrong with him?" The Rebbe said, "Just the opposite. Look at the greatness of this Yid, of this Jew. That even while he's involved in such a mundane activity, he wants to wear his talis and tefillin and feel close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu." It's a different way of looking at the world. It's to be the ability to extract good from everything, even from what may initially appear as if it was bad, it was tragic. It was bad, and it was tragic, and it was brutal, and it was painful. But the Jew has to find. This is what in Hasidus they talk about, the nitzotzes of Kedusha, the sparks of Kedusha. They're hidden. There's hidden sparks throughout the world. And the Jew's task is to find them and to elevate them and to extract them. And every single experience in life has potential good. You can learn lessons from everything, no matter how painful it was at the time. There's always something to learn. There's always a basis for inspiration. As Jews, we count time by the moon, not by the sun. The sun's the same; it never changes. The moon disappears once a month. It gets smaller and smaller, and then suddenly disappears. And if a person was born yesterday and he never saw what happens after the moon disappears, he would think the world's coming to an end. The moon is gone. But what happens? The moon suddenly reappears. There's a sliver in the sky in the middle of the night, and you see the beginning of the rebirth of the moon. There's Kiddush Levana. It comes out again every month. And the Kiddush Levada talks about how the Jewish people are constantly being reborn and rejuvenating. That's the secret of the moon, and that's how Jews live their life. It's true. Most Shnei B'nai Am, there's tremendous pain in life. That you can't negate that. But the key is Acharai Mos. After it happens, what do you do with it? And the answer is Bezos Yavo Aaron HaKadosh. You take the pain and you utilize it to reach an even higher level of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a wonderful Shabbos.